Hi, Joe Cerrone. Welcome to CAD 230, Introduction to Solidworks, and our weekly Zoom classroom meeting. This week we're releasing Module 7. Module 7 is a midterm practice test. And so we're going to model these 6 different parts. And these are taken from it's from a 10-year-old CSWA exam manual. And so they're a little bit less complicated than some of the newer ones. As the technology gets more improved, they tend to get a little bit more complicated. But I really like these straightforward models that we can work on for the SolidWorks Certified Associate Exam, CSWA. And I have vouchers for those. If you would like to take that exam at the end of the course, you can do that. If not, you can take it if you decide to take the intermediate SolidWorks course. Mike Durso does a great job with that as well. And so Lab 5 is due today at 11:59, and then Lab 6 is due next week along with Lab 7. This is Lab 7. So I kind of doubled up on it. If you need more time, just ask for an extension because the following week is spring break. And so as we look at how the class is moving along, we're halfway into it. And so next week will be the 7th, and then the following week we won't have class on the 14th. And so I will release the midterm exam on the 7th, and then you'll have until the 21st to turn that in. And it'll be very similar to the midterm practice exam where we will go through and model these different parts, assign a material to it, and then I'm going to take questions from the end of the chapters and put those into a multiple choice exam that we'll take as well. And so there's 2 parts to the midterm. There's the part modeling, and then there's the questions, just like we're doing in the class right now, where we'll model the parts and answer the volume questions. If you click on this link right here, I updated the document. I had some Lab 8s on there, but I couldn't edit them out. It'd take me too long, so I just put a note, disregard Lab 8 references. And they'll be similar to this. I don't know. You might see 1 or 2 that are the same on the midterm, but I typically put 5 or 6 part models into the midterm exam, and they're all pretty straightforward. And then I'm going to create a bonus to create a part drawing. And we haven't done a lot of part drawings. I do like part drawings. I think they should put that earlier in the textbook rather than, I think it's in like chapter 12. Rather than just doing the part models, we can start doing some of the actual drawing prints. And so Lab 7A is this volume of this widget. We're going to assign a material of 2014 aluminum alloy, and they put the densities for these materials. And so if you're really detail minded, you can take a look and see if the SolidWorks still matches up with those densities for those alloys to make sure that the calculations are correct. And they do change sometimes, so sometimes we will see those things as the 2010 versus 2023. So with these, they'll give you, a part, and then I take these straight from the textbook. They'll actually show you how they would model it, and they'll place the origin where they think it should be placed. And then as we go through and we look at these, I've got a few other windows here. Let me just move them out of the way. AutoCAD, and we'll go into SolidWorks. And so we're working on these different models, and then if we start with this first model right here, it's pretty straightforward. If we were to look at the sketch for it, I modeled it with the origin right here. Make sure that you set the units of measurement properly, and so this one would be set for inch, pounds, and seconds. And then we go through and we model that part. Extrude it, and then there's like an extrude cut that I'll put in there for that part to remove that. And then once that part is modeled, spacebar, isometric view, what we want to do is we want to assign a material to it. And so here I already have the material assigned to it. If I right click on this, I can remove the material, and then I can reload it. And so where it says material not specified, I right click and I say edit material, and then I choose the 1014 alloy, and I believe that's an aluminum alloy. So let's see if we can drill down to that. Was it a 2014 alloy? I believe it was. Maybe it was a 10. But either way, we assign that alloy material to it, and then we can go under the Evaluate tab and look up the mass properties for that, and then we can calculate out the mass based on the density of that material. And so this would be 0.84. And it's really super easy to grade these, because if you've modeled the part right and you've chosen the correct material, then the weight is usually pretty darn close. And they'll be off maybe by a slight amount depending on if it's properly filleted or if there's some small aspects to it. But most of the time the parts are really right on. And so if we look at the D2L area, and let me grab the right one here. In the D2L area, I put the labs in here, and so here's 7A. And you'll actually see the answers in here. And so here it is, 0.84 pounds. And so this is taken from the textbook in D2L. And so in D2L, under Content, Module 7, I talk a little bit about the midterm. It's in 2 parts, multiple choice questions from the first 7 chapters. And I really don't take anything from the first 2 because those are in configurations. And then hands-on modeling like shown above. And then as a bonus, I'm going to have a part drawing. And then if you take a look, here's the document that I created. It's the same one that's in the main splash page, where we'll model these different parts, and then I put the labs in red. So they shouldn't be anything to be worried about in the beginning as you go through it. As you start to work through, look at where they put the origin and look at how they have the material called out so that you put the correct material on. And then they basically show how they would construct it. And when you have symmetrical objects, it's best to draw half of it and mirror it, because as you do, you'll get those symmetrical relations, which will come about when you put dimensions like this 30 millimeters or this 120 or 40. It'll actually shrink to the center of the mirror line rather than get all wonky and start moving all over the place. And so these are pretty straightforward labs that we'll cover and look at. And then the material, actually if you want to go through and step by step create them, you can go through and take a look at the Module 7, and I have an old textbook in here called CSWA Practice Problems. And I'll draw some of the midterm questions from here as well. And so, back when the CSWA was in 2010, the parts were a lot simpler to model, in my opinion. We're not going to have an assembly model on the midterm because we haven't gotten to that yet. Some of you guys know SolidWorks already, probably know about assemblies, and they're really what makes SolidWorks such a really robust program, because you can simulate almost everything about the motion of those parts and work out most of the problems on the computer before you even cut any metal. And so as we take a look at these different part models that we can practice for, here's the first one, and they basically tell you how to build it. Creating all these different sketches, creating the extrude cuts, and then calculating out the volume and the mass based on that material that you've selected for it. Watch where you put the origins. Most of them aren't asking you for center of gravity, but in some of these models in the textbook, they will ask you for the CG, and to do that you have to properly place the origin. And so they'll tell you where to put the origin on there, and then creating these different models. Again, they'll tell you what material. So this one's going to be nylon. I don't think this one's in the practice exam, but you'll probably see this one in the actual exam. And it's like a plastic that will model out of that part. Go through, create the models according to the way that they have decided to do their modeling. And that's what's really nice about Solidworks. You can go back through the history of it and you can see exactly how the models were created, unlike other older CAD programs like AutoCAD, where you don't know how they made those things. With Solidworks, you have a history and you can kind of walk yourself back through how that model was created. And so there's a number of different models in here, and I've chosen 6 of them. Here's another one right here, this tutorial 3-6, and we'll model this one about a mid-plane and cut that, and then we'll analyze that. And then you'll probably see some of these other ones on the midterm exam as far as being able to create those. And I haven't made them super difficult on the midterm. I like the midterm to be kind of focused towards what we want to be able to do with a basic level SolidWorks class, which is model parts, create drawings, and do some basic assembly work. And so after the midterm, we'll start with some assembly drawings, and we'll work on some additional details that we can work on for the course. So that's the textbook that I'm drawing content from for the midterm. It's this old 2010 book, and I think it's pretty good. And then if we come back here to the module 7, you'll work on modeling these parts. There's no time limit or anything like that. You can just put them in the module 7. I'll grade it just like a regular 30-point drafting exam. You can just plunk your part models in the assignment folder there, and I'll grade those and give you the points for that. And then under quizzes and exams, we'll have our test 1, and I've got to go through and make sure it's updated. But if I take a look at one of the older tests that's in here, and since I'm viewing it as a student, can't quite see it. And so I do have more updated tests and things like that. And so if we look at them, we're going to use a proctoring software, and I'm not going to put that onto the midterm practice exam. I will put it on the actual midterm, because if somebody were to come in and say, hey, how do you know that so and so took the test, when you're teaching these things remotely. And so we're going to use a proctoring software called HonorLock, and I'll put that in the announcements. It's HONORLOCK.com. If you haven't taken any online courses, then you probably haven't seen this, but if you have, a lot of the other courses are being proctored using this. And so what it is it's a proctoring site, and you can go there and you can schedule a demo and they'll show you how it works. But essentially you need to have a driver's license or a photo ID and a webcam. And what you do is you'll click on the test and it'll take you to the HonorLock portal, and then they'll ask you to show your identification, and they'll ask you to pan around the room, and then I guess people will actually watch you take the test as you take it. And so it's a great way to just be able to be able to give these courses online and to make sure that people are who they say they are when they take the tests. So that'll be part of the test. It does cost, I believe it's $7.99 to take the test, or $12 for the entire semester. And so depending on how you subscribe to it, you might want to take the whole semester for $12, because we have the final exam that's going to be proctored as well. All right, back to the main splash page. If we were to look at some of the test questions and things from the exam, and my internet's just taking its time here. I'll just put these points out there. You know, to open a new sketch, you must first select a plane from the feature manager tree. True or false? Geometric relations can be used only in assembly environments. True or false? The current status of a sketch is displayed in the lower right-hand corner area of the screen. And so as we look at these different questions, you know, you'll have either true or false, and you'll mark the answer for that. And on this, I have quite a few questions. I think I have 50 questions. And so that sounds about right. 50 multiple choice questions covering the first 7 chapters, mostly from 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You can use the computer to answer the questions, open book, open notes, and that's how it is in the industry. Nobody's going to go and say, hey, what are you doing looking in the book? You know, if your job depends on it, you should be looking in the book. And with the way computers are and everything like that, everybody has help icons that you can go through and you can get more information about the commands with. So we'll have our midterm test, and we'll have our midterm hands-on drawing exam, and that's going to be scheduled for the week of spring break. I'll release the test next week on the 7th, and then you'll have until the 21st to complete that exam. The drawing problems that we currently have are right here, and we'll go through and create these models as part of Module 7, put them in the Dropbox, and then I'll go through and I'll grade those for you. But like I said, the answers are already in that CSWA 2011 exam manual, so you can look in there right yourself and see if you are on target with your models for those different parts. This is the hardest one right here. It's not even that difficult, but at the same time, you just want to get to the point where you can get these 5 models created within an hour and a half to 2 hours, so that you know you're productive and you've got some skills, you know, as you go into it and you work on SolidWorks. A lot of it is just getting to know the basics. Once you get the basics down with SolidWorks, it gets a lot easier, and you also find that there's a lot of complicated things you can do with it, and so it's a very robust software that you can work with. All right, with that, I'm going to go back to the main splash page. I'll put a posting next week as far as the honor lock information, and that's our Module 7 for today. We'll cover these different part models according to the PDF that I have right here. Practice creating a drawing file from that. If I was to look at one of these parts files, and let's say I wanted to make a part model from this one, I would go here to the new button and I'd say make drawing from part or assembly. I typically like to use B-size ANSI. And then as we bring these different parts in, we can start off with like a front view and then glean off top view, right side view in an isometric. Place them on the drawing, set up the visual style for those, and then when we go through and we dimension them, a lot of times we'll just put the dimensions in as we create the drawing. And so we'll go to the annotation tab and we'll say smart dimension, and we can start to place these dimensions on the drawing. You can also pull in dimensions from model items, and so we could bring in the entire model of the sketch dimensions by changing this to entire model and green check mark it, and then it'll put the dimensions that are known from the sketches in there, and then we can just kind of make it look neat. If you've had a good engineering graphics instructor, they'll tell you try to avoid putting the dimensions actually on the part. If you've drawn with a pencil, those were the guys that were really going through with the rules and everything. And you know, drawing with a pencil is not, takes a lot more work. You have to do all the calculations in your head. And then as we look at these different part models, as we go into them, we may want to have them set up with a display style so that we can see the hidden lines visible within these different views. So that's the bonus content as far as being able to create that drawing, and you can take a look in the textbook on creating part models. I'd be happy to go through, spend some more time with you guys on that as we go through, but it's just basically bonus. And then we'll create these different part models, and then we'll be on the second side of the course where we'll be working towards assembly models, and then working on, if you are interested in getting the CSWA exam. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording, and I'll post it for those who aren't in attendance tonight, and then we'll answer any questions that you guys may have.